Hey everybody. It's been a little while. Um how have you been? 'Cause life. There was a pandemic. I bought a new house. I had to put a dog down. I had to purchase a new dog eventually, or get a new dog eventually, I should say. This is Zoe, everybody. Zoe, say hello to the people at home. Work, finding the world we live in a little bit depressing and anxiety causing. But I do want to start making videos again, so I thought I'd dip my toe back in with this one, which is just a quick discussion of some really good media that I have discovered during the pandemic. We've got a series of books, a series of comic books, and a series of movies, all of which I have really been enjoying. In fact, we'll do two series of books because we can. The first series of books I want to talk to you about is by Ben Aronovich, and it is called either the Rivers of London series or the Peter Grant series. This is a series of British fantasy books. The first book is, depending on what country you're in, either Midnight Riot or The Rivers of London. I'm glad we've made it nice and easy. You're looking for a book in a series, either of which might have one or more names. The series is really good. Peter Grant himself is a police constable in the Metropolitan Police in London who discovers that magic exists. And he is super excited about it because he's grown up reading Harry Potter and Dresden Files, and it's like he's a big fanboy when it comes to this fantasy stuff. He's excited to get in there and start doing magic, which is a lot of fun. Uh, so it's a modern fantasy setting. It's a modern setting with fantasy. And it's called Rivers of London because certain geographical features, like rivers, for example, have deific personifications. Basically, there's a god or goddess of various rivers. But mostly, he's working to solve supernatural crimes. The series goes on for a while. I mean, the author has been pretty clear. He's just going to keep writing them. There's a comic book spin-off series, which has more canon stories. They're very enjoyable. I hesitate to use this phrase because it's used fairly frequently to the point where it probably doesn't mean anything. But in these books, the city of London is treated as if it's another character. And you may be thinking, I don't care about London, why should I care? It's less that it's London, and more that any very old, very large city is going to contain within it all kinds of strange bits of history and lore. And I was just in New York, and for the purpose that I'm talking about, New York and London would be fairly similar. Old cities, big cities, full of interesting and unique things. My friend the princess and I walked through Central Park. We just walked the width. We were in a hurry. That's the most we could do. We walked a straight line across Central Park and came across an Egyptian obelisk from like 1800 BC and a castle. The stories that must have come about to get those to where they are now. And the Rivers of London books explore that. It often puts a pause on the action to tell you about some interesting facet of London that is going to be pertinent to the story. And I find just the little bits and pieces of real life lore very fascinating. The book is solid. Without trying to spoil too much, I want to give this example to give you an idea of the sensibility that you're in for. In one of the books, they're trying to track down an evil practitioner. This guy has been using his skills to magically stitch people and animals together, which is horrifying, right? They come across a nightclub, an abandoned nightclub that he was operating out of. And for the rest of the series, when they refer back to this horrifying incident where they find this nightclub and they find all this stuff in there, the main character insists on referring to it as the strip club of Dr. Moreau. That's my kind of humor. It's very enjoyable. I do recommend checking it out. Ben Aronovich. The other book series I want to talk about is also fantasy, but of a very different stripe. It is called the Boss Log series. There are 3 books in it so far. I've only read 2 of them, so I'm looking forward to that third. They are by China Miéville, Mieville. It is steampunk Victorian era technology in a magical land, and pretty much everything is fair game. There are robots in this world that are running on steam-powered difference engines. There are also little demons flying around. There's an intelligent race of bug people, an intelligent race of cactus people, an intelligent race of bird people, a horrifying race of mosquito people, and so on and so on and so on. It is dark, it is seedy, it is an unpleasant world. It is a world that I enjoy reading about, but would never want to visit. And the stories also, they're hard to pin down, which I like. I like being able to be surprised by a story when it's not following the beats, when it's not being tropes. So the story kind of meanders a bit, because you're reading it, and you're like, okay, I got what the story's about, I got the point. And then it takes a swift left turn, and it's like, oh, so it's not about any of that stuff. Now it's all about, okay, so it's a little bit like certain episodes of The Family Guy or The Simpsons, where like the first half of the episode has nothing to do with anything. It just gets them to the position to where the story can actually start. And the first book is called Perdido Street Station. I read it. I loved it. The second book is called The Scar, and I loved it even more. It was so much better. And the ending took me completely by surprise. I never would have expected it, and I loved it for that. So, Perdido Street Station, The Scar, the third one is called The Iron Council. Give these a read if you're open to dark, treacherous, political, with several stretches of action in a world where pretty much anything can happen. It's a good time. I want to talk about a movie series. And I wish I had done a modicum of research before I started this video, but I really just wanted to make a video. I have been watching the Zatoichi series of films. They are Japanese movies. I'm going to mess this up. But they started in the early 60s and ran to the mid to late 70s, and there's 25 movies in the series. And the main character, Zatoichi, is played by the same actor in all of them. And then he came back in the late 80s to do one last one. So there were years while this series was in production where 2 or 3 of them would come out in a year. So much material. And Zatoichi, first of all, if you're familiar with westerns or samurai movies, this is that, right? Zatoichi is a wanderer. He travels from town to town and inevitably finds himself drawn into conflicts that he'd rather not be a part of, but he tries to do the right thing, and time again finds himself in conflict with whatever's going on in the area. He is a blind masseuse and the world's greatest swordsman. It's kind of amazing. He's one of the quick draw artist style swordsmen, so it's and three guys are dead, and he cut a candle in half. The action is fast. It is swift. Occasionally, he will encounter somebody where he can't just one draw and they're down. And those are always some really good battles. I'm going to put Zoe down. Most of the movies have very little blood, surprisingly. Some of the later ones add it because different directors come in and they want to put their mark on the series. But what I really feel like sets this one apart from a lot of these series of the lone stranger saving the day is that Zatoichi Zato is a title for the lowest rank of masseuse. His actual name is Ichi, but Zatoichi is a nice guy. Like, he's a fun-loving guy. He wants to have some sake, he wants to do some gambling, eat some rice, and just have a good time. He is a round-faced cherub who is quick to play pranks on people who think they can get the better of a blind man. He is not a badass until he has to be, and then he is unstoppable. And that dichotomy is a lot of fun. It's nice that he's not just always going around as Clint Eastwood, right? He's just a happy-go-lucky guy who time and time again finds himself drawn into these situations. I have watched the first 21 of these. I've got like 4 to go. And I've really been enjoying them. I recommend checking them out. Start at the beginning, although realistically, after like the first 3, you can watch them in any order. Because after the first 3, they realized, we're just going to keep telling stories. They also did a Zatoichi TV series that I've not gotten my hands on, again, starring the same actor. It's amazing. That guy just played this part for decades and was so good at it. And while we're talking about Japanese culture, let's move on to the final thing I want to recommend. Usagi Yojimbo. It's a comic book series by Stan... by Stan something. He's a great guy, and I'm feeling really bad that I can't remember his name right now. And if you've grown up with like the Ninja Turtles, you know Usagi Yojimbo, and if you've gone into comic book stores, you've seen him. It's the Samurai Bunny. And it's possible to look at a glance and think that it's just lighthearted animals comic. It's not. It is very much like Zatoichi. It is samurai stories. The fact that the characters are simply drawn animals doesn't actually influence the tone of the stories that are being told. I think largely what it does is it makes it easy to tell characters apart while maintaining a very simplistic art style. And I don't mean simplistic as an insult. It is just clean and simple. It's good art, and the stories are great. It is more Japanese, the Wild West Japanese period, which is the Edo period, like Zatoichi. They are deep stories drawing from Japanese lore and Japanese legends, and they are really enjoyable. I am surprised at how much I have come to enjoy Usagi Yojimbo, and now is the time to get into it because they are collecting the Saga collections, which are the big, thick paperbacks. They are currently in the middle of reprinting these. They've reprinted the first 4 or 5, which means it is not ruinously expensive to start reading it now. So go look for the Saga of Usagi Yojimbo. I will put links in the description of this video to the things that I'm talking about on Amazon, although you don't have to buy stuff on Amazon. Buy them locally. You don't have to support Jeff Bezos. It's just the easiest place I can think of to show you what you're looking for. I highly recommend all of these. I did come across one other series of movies that warrant a lot more discussion. If only I had a series of videos where I analyze movies in depth and make fun of them. I should do something like that. Huh. I hope I'm back. I hope this video is the start of me making many more videos. And I hope you've all been well, and I hope you've all been safe. And I hope all of us have found small bits of happiness, things that we can enjoy in these troubled times. Be well, my friends. Take care of yourself. Take care of the others around you. I'll see you around.